GIA officials confirmed Malian authorities blocked Gambia's second flight to Mecca due to clearing issues. Somalian new prime minister has been unanimously endorsed by the country's National Assembly. And victims of the deadly earthquake in Afghanistan call for more support. Well, this and more coming ahead on The World Today. Hello, this is Eyeafrica TV and you are watching the World Today News, bulletin live from our studios in Banjul. Many thanks for joining us. I am Amadou Kante and now the news in detail. Now, Gambia International Airlines officials at the Banjul International Airport have confirmed to Eyeafrica TV that the second flight carrying Gambian pilgrims that was denied by Malian authorities to use the country's airspace were expected to leave Banjul on Monday at 3 p.m. for the holy city of Mecca to perform their 2022 Hajj. Now, according to the Director General of the Gambia International Airline, the Malian authorities denied the flight from using their airspace due to what they call lack of permit. Now, but the first flight that took about 433 Gambian pilgrims landed in Mecca, and the pilgrims are currently performing their prayers at the mosque of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. Let's have more details of that in this report by Mafuji Sise.
However, the second flight that took off yesterday was returned home by the Malian authorities just 2 hours after departure. The GIA Director General has this to say.
It's a Saudi carrier, and it is the one that is contracted to transport Gambian pilgrims this year. But unfortunately, whether forgetfulness or for whatever reason that we don't know, they did not obtain our flight permit for the aircraft that they have deployed for the Gambia's second flight. So when they reached Mali, they were denied entry into the airspace, and then there's no choice but to return back to the Gambia. The flight came in around 3 a.m. Yes. Yeah, yesterday night when it returned from Mali.
For the Gambian pilgrims to be allowed to cross the Malians' airspace, Gambian authorities have to secure overflying permit from either Malians or any other country that the pilot can use en route to Medina. Mr. Cham emphasized that the returning of the Gambian pilgrims is not caused by the citizens or government, but strictly caused by fly-lays.
But again, I want to emphasize once again that what happened is not a Gambian problem. It's not the problem or fault of any Gambian, whether a person or an institution. This is exclusively the problem of flyers, the carrier contracted to transport Gambian pilgrims. It is exclusively their problem. But notwithstanding, when the flight was returned, we the operators, we also informed the authorities in the country. And since yesterday night, the authorities have picked up the issue and they are working behind the scenes to make sure that these navigational or flight permits are obtained. And once the permits are at hand, we will transport the pilgrims back from the hotel to the airport to board the aircraft and head for Medina.
Since Colonel Assimi Koita overthrew the democratically elected government in Mali on 2 occasions and refused to return to civilian rule, the country has been at loggerheads with the West African regional bloc ECOWAS, who suspended the former French colony to force them to return to civilian rule. Since then, it has never been easy either on the former French colony or the regional bloc, because Mali's retaliation to the suspension has forced ECOWAS to tighten its rules. However, Guinea-Conakry and Burkina Faso have all been suspended by regional bloc to return to civilian rules, but since then, no avail. For African News, I am Mafuji Sise.
Well, we only hope that the issue have been resolved to pave way for the Gambian pilgrims to attend their Hajj in Mecca. Now, moving on, the Somalia's parliament has unanimously endorsed Hamza Abdi Barry as the country's new prime minister, paving the way for the creation of a new government for the troubled Horn of African nation. Now, while the process of introducing a full government continues, parliamentarians hope that the new prime minister and the president would work together to ease the political tension. Somalia's new administration faces a rift of challenges, including a looming famed and a grinding insurgency by the Al-Shabaab jihadis. Here's more details of that in this report.
The Somali parliament unanimously approved the appointment of the new prime minister. All 220 members of the House who were present approved his nomination that had been announced on the 15th of June.
All members have voted in favor. No member opposed or abstained. Therefore, the new prime minister is fully endorsed.
The new premier pledged to establish an inclusive government to respond to the challenges that the country faces.
I promise in front of you to form a quality government selected on the basis of experience, transparency, knowledge and skills that will work on the various needs of the nation and implement economic development.
Members of parliament hope the new prime minister and the president will work together smoothly and avoid unnecessary political tension.
No more political tensions again. We are ready to also approve a new Prime Minister's cabinet that we hope is inclusive of all groups in the country.
Hamza Abdi Barre has decades of experience working in both the government and the private sector. With new Prime Minister in office and his cabinet expected in the next coming days, what remains to be seen now is how the new administration will deal with recurrent challenges, including drought and insecurity.
Elsewhere in the African continent, the United Nations Refugee Agency, UNHCR, says it will engage the Kenyan authorities over their plan to close the 2 main refugee camps by the end of June 2022. The decision by the Kenyan authority to shut down the camps has put refugees in a predicament situation amidst plans to repatriate some of them back to their countries. Now, the 2 camps are said to be hosting over 400,000 refugees who fled from wars in the East and Horn of Africa. Let's have more details of that in this report.
Kenya's ultimatum for the closure of the 2 refugee camps was first brought to the attention of the UNHCR in 2021. The ultimatum called on the refugee agency to develop a comprehensive plan to close the Kakuma and the Dadaab refugee camps by the end of June this year. Previous efforts to close the camps yielded little, with many saying it was unsafe for refugees to return to their homeland.
Somalia sees Kenya as an hostile neighbor. Kenya sees Somalia as a hostile neighbor. So the refugees have been used as a political tool for some time to try to win concessions, try to pressure the government. And I think it's unlikely that's going to be closed, my personal opinion.
Terrified and shocked are some of the words that describe the fear of refugees about the impending shutdown. For hundreds who have for years called this place home, the imminent closure can only put their future at stake. According to the UNHCR, the number of refugees and asylum seekers in Kenya stood at 552,061 as of May 2021. Over 230,000 are under the care of the UN Refugee Agency in Dadaab, and another 230,954 live in Kakuma. Majority of the refugees are from Somalia, DRC, and South Sudan. It's feared that the closure of the place they have come to call home could have a wider impact on the overall protection of refugees in Kenya. UNHCR says it will continue to seek dialogue with the Kenyan government to allow for a sustainable solution.
Coming back home now, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization on Monday commenced a 5 days workshop to analyze gaps and combat illegal unreported and unregulated fishing of marine resources in the Gambia, organized under the theme formulation of a national strategy and action plan for compliance with the 2009 FAO agreement on port state measures to prevent, deter, and eliminate illegal and unreported and regulated fishing. And Moses Emendi has the details of that in this report.
Illegal, unreported, and unregulated IUU fishing undermines sustainable fisheries and leads to the loss of social and economic opportunities, as well as affect the livelihoods of legitimate fishers and coastal communities negatively. Therefore, the workshop is geared towards the formulation of a national strategy and action plan for the Gambia to effect international instruments and strengthen the local and national capacity to eliminate and deter unauthorized fishing. The workshop is being convened through the port state measures, whose coming into force in 2016 was then hailed by the United Nations as the beginning of a new era to fight against illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. Mrs. Moshibudi Rampedi, FAO resident representative in the Gambia, reaffirmed her organization's commitment to collaborate and support the Gambia government and spoke of the workshop output.
Ladies and gentlemen, if we work together for this week and we address the port state measures, we all hope to achieve the following: to complement the efforts of flag states in fulfilling their responsibilities under international law, as it provides an opportunity for port states to check and verify vessels not flying their flags when they seek permission to enter their ports. It is important for flag states to control vessels to make sure that certain conditions and actions are met.
She, however, added that the process requires a strong political will and commitment. Fanta Samate Bojangmane, Deputy Permanent Secretary of the Fisheries Ministry, speaking on behalf of the Fisheries Minister, said illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing constitute a global problem, and the Gambia is no exception. She therefore hopes for the successful implementation of the control measures.
This gap assessment workshop today will avail the Gambia with the requisite knowledge for the formulation of national strategy and action plan to be aligned with the national policies, legislation and monitoring, control and surveillance systems, and operations for active implementation of PSME.
She said clear efforts are being made at international, regional, and national levels through the implementation of international instruments to tackle unauthorized fishing. The Port State Measures Agreement aims to prevent fish caught through illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing from entering national and international markets. It does this by preventing the entry into and use of ports by foreign vessels engaged or believed to be engaged in IUU fishing. The Gambia is a party to the PSM agreement that entered into force on June 5, 2016. As of May 2022, there were 70 parties to this agreement. Moses Mendy, Eyeafrica News.
And the 5-day workshop is taking place at the South Dauda Karabai Javara International Center. And you are watching the World Today News Bulletin on Eyeafrica TV, coming to you live from our studios in Banjul. And from the report there, we now take a break and come back shortly. Stay with us, we'll be right back. This is Eyeafrica TV, and you are watching the World Today News Bulletin. Once again, many thanks for joining us, and let's now look at the rest of the stories. Now, the Gambia Radio and Television Services over the weekend celebrated the 60th anniversary of Radio Gambia as a national broadcaster since its establishment by the former colonial administration. Now, the event was greeted by government officials, dignitaries, current and former staff of the radio and its fans. Now, Eyeafrica TV's Yahya Jammeh was at the event and seen our reports.
Radio Gambia came into existence on the 1st of May 1962 and began broadcasting at the telegraph route in Batos, Banjul by the former colonial administration. Fatou Jain Senghor, chairperson of the board of directors of GRTS, looks back at the 60 years of Radio Gambia and its institutions that have been part of the lives of Gambians for decades.
60 years is indeed, as the chair of the organizing committee mentioned, is a milestone, a moment of reflection, a moment to chart a new way forward. I believe we need to open a new chapter in our kiosk to improve quality and service delivery in the interests of the citizens. To know where we are going, we need to know where we are today. I think the Director General and the previous speaker mentioned some of the key improvements that our national broadcaster has been embarking upon. But importantly, I think we need to know also where we have been. History is very important because if we know where we have been, I think it will help future generation, especially the younger one also, to see where the country has come from. Our DG also has given some key updates on some of the challenges, the needs, but importantly, the achievements. These are some highlights. In the coming months, you will hear more from us in terms of the plans to improve and strengthen GRTS to ensure that it is closer to the citizens. Where we have been, the Gambia has maintained, as we all know, a state monopoly on broadcasting for so many years. But Gambia also has been one of the few countries in the region that opened the airwaves, but that opening also helped to ensure some pluralistic and diverse space. But it was more for entertainment, not really for political views. For many years, private radio stations were kind of allowed to operate, but within very, very limited content, and also their editorial independence was hampered by repressive laws and the climate of fear. We need to know also where we are coming from. The political situation then has slowed down the development of Radio Gambia and limited the potential of our public broadcaster and the media in general.
Director General of the Gambia Radio and Television Services, GRTS, Mr. Malik Jeng, in his statement said 60 years is not just an anniversary for Radio Gambia as it has played a significant role in the lives of the Gambians.
For those who may be questioning the rationale behind such an event, I have the following answers for you. 1, 60 years is not just any anniversary. 2, Radio Gambia is a national institution that has played a significant role in the political, economic, social, and cultural evolution of this country. 3, for many years, Radio Gambia was the only voice of the Gambia, providing a credible channel of communications between our leaders and the people. 4, Radio Gambia actively promoted Gambian music and culture. 5, for many years, Radio Gambia's school broadcasting unit, working with the Ministry of Education and manned by 2 distinguished ladies, Mrs. Rohi Silla and Mrs. Kumba Mane, streamed lessons in various subjects to classrooms in remote parts of the country that had no electricity. For decades, key ministries such as health and agriculture also used Radio Gambia to spread messages to people all over the country. The radio repeatedly preached unity and peaceful cohabitation among our communities at all times.
For many years, Radio Gambia was the only voice of the Gambia. It is a national institution that has been playing a significant role in political, economic, social, and cultural revolution in the Gambia. For Africa News, Yahya Jammeh.
Happy anniversary to Radio Gambia. 60 years is indeed a long journey, and we wish they continue to serve the Gambian people. Now, moving on, a United Nations report reveals that more than 40% of the 200 million Nigerian population is lacking access to electricity supply. Now, some experts blame the Nigerian government for the inadequate power supply, which, according to the World Bank, is making companies lose billions of dollars in revenue on a yearly basis. Now, authorities of the West African nation have, however, vowed to remedy the electricity crisis, but others believe more needed to be done. Now, let's have more details of that in this report.
David Francis is a farmer who lives with his family in Dong, a community on the outskirts of Jos. There is no electricity here, which he says is challenging.
As little as charging our phones, we have to send someone to Jos Town, and it's done for a fee, just because we don't have a connection to electricity.
David is just one of many Nigerians without electricity. The Association of Nigerian Electricity Distributors says the country only generates about 4,000 megawatts of electricity on most days. This, it says, is less than a third of what is required to provide for more than 200 million citizens and their businesses. The World Bank says companies lose $29 billion a year as a result of unreliable electricity. Economic analysts attribute it to the government's neglect of the power sector.
The fact that we have plants not being properly maintained and budgets not being used as allotted for these sectors makes it increasingly difficult for us to be able to have this constant power supply we actually require.
Experts say more needs to be done to improve generation and distribution of electricity in the country with alternative sources such as solar and nuclear.
If we can deal with corruption, we can be able to do with all of this other, because it's even good to have alternatives. When one is shutting down, the other one is working. Nigeria should be producing over 10,000 megawatts of electricity.
The government says it's doing all it can. It says it has upgraded 2 generating plants as part of efforts to improve power supply in the country. The government also says it now has projects in renewable energy to provide several megawatts of solar and hydroelectricity. These projects, the government says, are over 90% complete with World Bank support of $500 million. It's hoped these efforts, if successfully completed, will supercharge the Nigerian economy.
And from the report from Nigeria, on to our final story next, because victims of the recent deadly earthquake in Afghanistan are calling for more humanitarian support amid the prevailing hardship condition. Now, the United Nations Children's Agency, UNICEF, is leading the response drive and is calling for more assistance to mitigate the already deteriorating situation. The Taliban government has promised to provide aid for the victims, but not everyone is convinced. Here's more details of that in this report.
We are at the Indira Gandhi Child Hospital in Kabul, and this is 2 years old Hafiza, a child brought from Paktika province, and the aftermath of earthquake has brought her in serious injuries.
Hafiza was asleep with her family of 5 when the quake started, and the roof of their house collapsed. The doctors say she faces a series of medical procedures, and her condition is critical.
As Hafiza is fighting between life and death inside the ICU, her father is here and waiting and praying for her sooner recovery. I talked with the doctors too, so now I want to talk with her father and let's see what he's saying.
We got on the helicopter and transferred along with the wounded. With the grace of Allah, the doctors are doing a very good job.
As thousands of families mourn the loss of their loved ones, many are waiting in the hospital emergency and ICU wards. UN agencies warn about a possible cholera outbreak in some areas. 500,000 cases of acute diarrhea have already been reported.
to prevent the spread of these diseases, UNICEF is supplying soap to the affected communities, we're trucking in water, we're bringing in emergency latrines, and we are repairing water systems.
We need some other helps like foods for the people, medicine, and also tents, shelters for their lives.
The Taliban leadership has said it will compensate families of those killed or injured, but many reportedly doubt they will ever get any money. For now, survivors are simply trying to get through another day, waiting for help, not knowing what the future holds.
And from that sad and unfortunate report in Afghanistan, we finally bring this news edition to an end. But for more details on this and other stories, as always, as ever, you can visit on our website on Eyeafrica.tv. But for now, many thanks for the pleasure of your company. Thanks for watching and do have a pleasant evening. Bye-bye.